On the 5th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows brought together representatives of 24 international peace organizations.
Peaceful Tomorrows has been building a network of international friends since the beginning.
The members of these organizations have each been directly affected by political violence, terrorism, and war. Yet they have all chosen to work for nonviolence.
We invited people to come here, talk about the work that they've done in their own countries.
It's wonderful to meet you.
From Sudan. I'm here to share what you have gone through for the last 21 years, and thank you.
It's overwhelming to meet so many wonderful people working for peace.
Afifa, Sharifa, Esma. Afghanistan, Algerian in Paris.
I'm expecting to learn much, to share much, and to build a network of peace builders and peacemakers.
People had come from all over the world. They brought experience of violence in places with long-standing conflict, like Colombia, Northern Ireland, and Afghanistan. Some had lost family members to terrorist attacks in Bali, Chechnya, and Madrid. Still others were victims of state-sponsored violence, the mafia, and weapons that overwhelmingly kill civilians.
If there has been one theme of our work with Peaceful Tomorrows, it has been civilian casualties. Our recognition that our loved ones were civilian casualties of terrorism, that they were part of a larger universe of people who had suffered in similar ways, and that we wanted to spare other people the pain that our families had experienced and the losses that we had suffered. At the end of the 20th century, 90% of the deaths in war were civilians. Deaths from decades-long low-level civil wars, deaths from dislocation and disease. These are people we don't hear about because their deaths are not dramatic the way that September 11th was dramatic. And as we begin our work today, I would like us to return to the days immediately after the September 11th attacks, when the whole world came together in sympathy and solidarity for those who were killed. It was a time when people in Iran and Egypt held candlelight vigils spontaneously for the victims who had been killed in the United States. It was a time when almost half of Americans said that they would not support the bombing of Afghanistan if it meant that there would be significant civilian casualties. We believe that another world is possible, that war is not the answer, and that each one of us has the power to effect change.
The delegates began their work together by sharing personal stories in a forum led by Father Michael Lapsley from the Institute for Healing of Memories in South Africa.
I was asked just to share a little bit of my own journey. I was born and brought up in New Zealand, came to South Africa in 1973 at the height of apartheid. I often think when I remember back that the day I arrived in South Africa, I stopped being a human being and became a white man. That suddenly color defined every single part of my life. And I began another journey to recover my own humanity in solidarity with black people struggling for their own fundamental rights. And I joined the organization of Nelson Mandela, the African National Congress of South Africa. I was a chaplain, a priest within the liberation movement. You know, as South Africans, we were fortunate in that our struggle became the struggle of all humanity. That somehow the world realized that there was something at stake in South Africa that concerned the humanness of all of us. As you know, Nelson Mandela got released from prison because there came on the stage a white president who said, "We will talk." Unfortunately, when they said they'll talk, it didn't mean that they would stop killing. So at my home in Zimbabwe, I received in the post 2 religious magazines. And when I opened one of the magazines, they exploded. So I lost my hands, I lost an eye, my eardrums were shattered. A little bit of the time, I thought it would be better to be dead, because I did not know whether life would be life again in any meaningful sense. But when I was bombed, I received messages of prayer, love, support from all over the world. I sometimes say that when I die, I won't need a funeral, because people said all the nice things then. And I can recommend it. I don't know why they wait till you're dead before they say nice things to you. That prayer, that love, that support created for me the safe space, the sacred space, where I was enabled to say that, to see that if I was full of hatred, bitterness, self-pity, and desire for revenge, that I would be a victim forever. So my own journey was a journey from being a victim to being a survivor to being a victor, in the sense of becoming part of creating and shaping a different kind of world. In my work and the Institute for Healing of Memories, I travel the world seeking to accompany others so that others too will be able to acknowledge the pain of the past and yet not be its prisoner. It is appropriate that the story we begin with is the story of the atomic bomb.
Good morning.
日本からやってきました長崎の被爆者の中山です。
I am Takamitsu Nakayama. I'm from Nagasaki.
私は
I was born in Peru, South America in 1929.
生まれました。その私が
It was around the time when Japan invaded China and was denounced by the world. So immigrant Japanese living outside Japan, like us, were placed in a very difficult situation, and my family decided to go back to Japan. And that was where I fell victim to the atomic bomb.
日本が戦争を
If the military government of Japan had not invaded other countries, I would not have become a hibakusha, a bomb victim.
日本の戦争で
I really understand the sentiment and feeling of the people in Asian countries who were victimized by Japan's war of aggression, and those of the American people who suffered the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
で多くの人
And as a Japanese citizen, I sincerely apologize to them for the enormous suffering caused by the military of my country.
同時に
However, I must say that the atomic bombing was the most cruel act of mass destruction.
長崎で2つの原
The
爆で
cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were completely destroyed by the 2 atomic bombs, and about 100,000 people were instantly killed on those days.
Mr. Nakayama, what made you decide to be a peace activist?
ところが
5 years after the bombing, that was in 1950, when the war on Korean War started, and that was when the danger of the use of nuclear weapons was again discussed. And I couldn't just sit still, and I started to work with other people on the street to campaign against the use of atomic bomb again.
さらにその後
And in 1954, the United States conducted the big hydrogen bomb test in the Pacific, which was called Bravo shot. And the explosive power of that bomb was 1,000 times bigger than the Hiroshima type bomb. And that was when 800 Japanese fishing boats were affected, which were operating in the area. The danger of the use of nuclear weapons came up again and again over the years, including the time after the 9/11.
This long journey that you've traveled, what's been the hardest part?
The most difficult work that I faced was to try to make other people understand the seriousness of the effect of the atomic bombing. And we believe that the only way that we really put an end to our own suffering and is to make sure that Nagasaki will be the last place where people will be injured and killed and affected by the atomic bomb and nuclear weapons.
Mr. Nakayama, where do you draw your strength from?
When I came to the United States to speak in the meeting which was held at the Nevada test site, and among the audience was a young American woman who came up to me and said, "My father was a scientist working on uranium, and I used to be very proud of what he was doing, but after I hear about your story, I was so sorry and I want to apologize to you." And actually I was really impressed by what she said to me. And when the young people of the United States came to me and encouraged my effort and who really understand what I was going to say, I really felt hope for the future.
One of the things that gives me hope is that enemies can become friends. So I want to thank you for the kind of grace that leads you to come here with an apology. In my tradition within the continent of Africa, we would want to call you a living ancestor. And I'd ask everybody to stand just to honor and thank Mr. Nakayama.